Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase podcast. Today we have with us Kara Milloy. Kara is a transformational astrology and emotional wellness coach who, because she believes the world needs more joy, hope, and change, she is dedicated to empowering you to embrace your authentic self. And I love that. We were just talking before the show that is so great. Welcome to the show, Kara.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. My original thought for my company, Thrivuary, was it came out of my own healing journey. You may be thinking about asking this question, but just brought it up when we talked about the authenticity aspect of things, and the two words sanctuary and thrive, and I just put them together to create Thrivuary. And the idea of it is to move from surviving to thriving. And part of that involves embracing our most authentic self. And so my hashtag is actually be authentically you.
I love that. And it's so important for people to embrace authenticity and who they are instead of trying to be what everybody else, it's not even what everybody else wants them to be. It's what they think everybody else wants them to be, which is totally wrong because everybody just wants you to be you so they know how to deal with you.
100%. And that is a lot of what we are breaking down collectively, and then of course individually, especially during these few years that we're in. And I'll talk about that a little bit too if we want to talk about transits. But Pluto moves into Aquarius next year, fully by November, but in the spring, March to June-ish, we have another taste of it. We had a taste of it this spring in 2023. But for 2024, it's a big deal. Lots of astrologers are talking about this. It's a movement collectively toward individuation. And so that's a big part of what I'm helping people to do now to ready themselves for this change.
So talk to me more about that. I'm really interested in what it means for everybody. Because next year is supposed to be an amazing year. It just in terms of the energy around it and the numbers around it and stuff like that.
It definitely feels like there are going to be some big changes, dynamic changes. And so anytime we have big changes, we also have resistance. Anytime think about when we are trying to develop a new habit or break a habit, right? We have these resistances because of it's ingrained in us. And so part of what Pluto is doing, so I'm a Pluto astrologer. When I talk about Pluto a lot, that's the basis of the paradigm of evolutionary astrology. And so that is what I see as the soul of the collective or the soul of the individual, whatever chart I'm looking in. So collectively, Pluto is finishing up transiting through the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn represents structure and law and authority, and also the patriarchy. And so part of what we're feeling or what we're moving through as Pluto is moving into Aquarius is leaving the patriarchal structures. There's things that are breaking down. We see that everywhere in the world. And so in that, we are now trying to embrace the new. We don't know what the new is going to look like yet. It's brand new, right? So there's somewhat of a a little bit of an insecurity that can develop within that, because we just don't know. It's unfamiliar to us. So that's my passion, to help people embrace their authenticity so that they can feel comfortable moving in this unfamiliar territory. But for 2024, I do believe that it will be exciting. There's going to be a lot of movement where I feel the stagnant energy that we felt for the last couple of years, especially after the lockdown. I think we'll feel some freedom, hopefully.
Wow. That's like so exciting.
I know that was a lot.
I get the whole moving out of the patriarchy into the new, and you could feel that energy shift eh, for like the last 3 years. It's been steady, and it's really what inspired me to do what I'm doing. And it's inspired a lot of people, coaches, to like step into who they are, be their authentic self, and really share their message with the world. And it's really the whole world. It's not like one country or another. I talk to people from everywhere, and we're all feeling the same thing. It's like there's something coming. It's going to be really cool. And we all want to be part of it, and we want to be part of making it. And we want it to be this special, beautiful place where everybody has a place, and everybody is respected and honored for who they are and what they're contributing. And we're not having to compete with each other over resources that are basically unlimited. The
Yes.
more we are our authentic selves, the more abundance is created, because we're contributing all of this energy into the big energy field. And so more and more can be created and brought into reality. I think everything exists at the same time, that the more we focus on it and the more we work on manifesting, is just make visible. So manifesting all of these amazing things for each other, not just for ourselves, but for each other, as we are all connected in the energy that is the world. It's just like, I get so excited.
That is 100. I know I get excited about it too, because exactly what you were just talking about. And of course, I relate it to astro speak, but I try to break it down, obviously, for my clients who aren't astrologers. But what you were just talking about as far as manifestation and the changes. And so Uranus, the planet Uranus, and the sign of Aquarius are connected. So when I talk about Pluto moving into Aquarius, we talk about, well, if you remember the song, The Age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
And you think about humanitarianism, we think about community, we think about groups of people that are connected and working together and sharing. And that really is a big part of that energy. The other part of it is the destabilization, though, that feels a little chaotic. So that's why I think it's so important. And like you mentioned, the resources. We have unlimited resources within us. And that's the part where, when we are conditioned, mainly by the patriarchy, to, externalize a lot of our power, it's important then to come back to ourselves, to pull our power back, recognize the resources that we have within ourselves, because that's where we manifest from. And it truly is. Everything is present with us all at the same time. That is the Aquarian field, the quantum field that we create from. And the energies of community and connecting to one another is absolutely what helps to bring that into focus and into the reality of the 3D world.
Yeah. And it's happening. We're watching it happen right now. And that's just like,
it's exciting time to be alive. As chaotic as it can be sometimes, it really is. We get to be a part of shaping the new reality. And as you said, when we are able to provide, when we are able to embrace our own authenticity, it gives permission for other people around us to also embrace theirs. And so those of us doing the work, the coaches and the leaders in this movement, if you will, are really offering that to people, holding that space for those of us or, who are struggling with that a little bit, and just creating that space for others to really feel like they can be themselves. And a big part of the Aquarian energy is also the individuation, recognizing that I don't have to be like everybody else. I have unique qualities and I'm here for a purpose.
Yeah. And
we all have that.
and we all have that, and we all need to exhibit it. It's okay if not everybody likes you. It's okay if, well, I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day, and she's like, I sometimes wonder what people are thinking about me. Honey, people don't think about you. They think about themselves. But she comes to that kind of naturally because she does wonder what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
And she works on a factory line. It's one of her two jobs. One job she's a baker, the other job she makes ice cream. And she's
That's an
about
interesting
as big
transition.
around as my finger. But she does both. But when she's standing on the line, she'll look at people and she'll wonder what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about, sometimes when you try to imagine what other people are thinking, you're putting thoughts to them that don't really exist because they're probably not thinking that. But you're assigning some feelings, emotions, thoughts to them that will impact how you perceive them when it's not even real. So it's
that's
dangerous to think about other people.
It can be. Yeah, it can be. And that's actually a lot of what I work with sometimes with clients is this idea of projection and what we think someone else is thinking of us, or what we think someone else expects of us, or what we think society expects of us. And so it is something that's very present with all of us. A lot of us were conditioned that way just by society, and some of us have it naturally. And so I guess I'll use this time to speak about what I would call the Pluto and Libra generation, which is basically Generation X. But those souls who are born between approximately 70 or 69 to 81, 82, just depends on the retrograde. But those of us mostly born in the 70s, I'm included in that. So Libra is our relating sign, and it has to do with, it's the first social sign, and it's how we are configured in relationships. And so all of us have Libra energy. Some of us just have it in heavier amounts, or if our Pluto is there, it's our transformational journey. And so a lot of it has to do with that. What is expected of me, or what is someone thinking of me? And so I work with a lot of people that struggle with that particular struggle.
This one that I was speaking of, my youngest daughter, she's actually a Gen Z. My oldest is a Gen X. I have like 21 year spread between my oldest and my youngest. So it's been interesting to watch how each of them meander through the zodiac.
Yeah, that is interesting. And like I said, every one of us, we all have all of the archetypes within our personality. It's just how we express them. But I just thought I'd take a moment to at least mention that part of it, because that's a generational theme that I'm seeing a lot of clients in that process right now. And collectively, our nodes, the nodes of the moon, which we look at as the karmic pathway, is in the relating signs of Libra and Aries. And so a lot of us are working through or recognizing, memories that are coming up. How do we function within relationships? How do we show up in relationships? Do we show up as our authentic self, or do we live by these projections and expectations? And so I do some couples readings as well. And that's one of the things that I find is a challenge sometimes for people.
It's interesting that you're working with that age group. I'm kind of on the far edge. I was born in the 60s. I was born in 1960. So that the difference in dynamics, I can see in different generations how there's groups of characteristics.
Mhm.
So it makes a lot of sense to me what you're saying as far as the planetary influence over generations of people and how they interact with each other, and the struggles that they're kind of trapped in. I know a lot of people in that age group that were born, between the 70s and early 80s, that they're almost every one of them that I come to think of it is struggling with relationship issues. But just like a few years later, like 3 years later, I had another child, and it's a totally different dynamic. So it's really
It
kind of
is interesting because I have two different Pluto children as well. So Pluto moves through a sign between 12 to 20 years. So that's why we call it a generational planet. In the 60s, it would have been Pluto in Virgo. Most Pluto Virgo struggles that I see, or that generational theme, a lot of that is overcoming perfectionism, and there's some issues with shame that's brought up. So those are the themes that I see with Pluto Virgos. And then of course where it sits in your own chart, which house it's in, is more specific to you, to your individual person. And then we have Pluto Scorpio, which is right after Pluto Libra, and they are here to confront. They're just here to confront the depths of things. That's what Scorpio is all about. And so that's where you definitely see the difference between Pluto Libra kids, or now they're not kids, they're adults, but
they're
and Pluto
adults.
Libra or Pluto Scorpio people is, the Libras are definitely more, well, our challenge is people pleasing. We want to be liked. And so we want to be, giving and things like that. And so the Pluto Scorpios are like, wait a minute, no, that's not me. I don't want to be like that. And we need to confront
Don't
why we
really
have to
care
be
what
like
you
that.
think.
Exactly. And then the Pluto, so I have a Pluto Scorpio sun, and then I have a Pluto Sagittarius sun. And so they are very, very different people, even though they're only born 4 years apart. So, and then my grandkids are all Pluto Capricorn. So after 2008, that's what I think we are calling Gen Z now, essentially, is the Pluto and Capricorn kids. And they are definitely, Pluto Sag is, those are the people who are really, their empowerment journey is to find their own truth. And some of that is within all of us, of course, but specifically that generation. And you see that collectively in, I think these are our young adults now who are, I think they brought out the idea of gender, no gender, non-binaryism, transgender, more so than any other generation before,
It's
because
just like they don't care. It's
no,
like you're just who you are.
yes,
I'm not even going to
I don't
assign
want
you
to
a
be
gender
defined.
because, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're standing in their truth, and that's their empowerment journey. But of
yeah.
course, they're facing a society that doesn't want them to do that. So that's their challenge. Our Pluto journey is our empowerment journey. Of course, when we are becoming empowered, we have to face disempowerment. That's how we build resilience. That's how we build, that's how we build the resilience. And then our Pluto Cap kids, they're here. They don't really care either. They don't care about this. They don't care about, and I don't mean they don't care in a negative sense. I just mean that they're here to forge their own path.
Mhm.
They're here to, create their own space for their emotional selves. And we see this, with the explosion of neurodivergence within this generation. And it very much is pushing the rest of us to recognize where we need to hold space for our emotions, for their emotions, because they're connected to them in a way that we haven't been in the past.
It's just so fascinating to see all of the different bits and pieces of who we are as a collective,
Yeah.
and appreciate the differences and the challenges that each group is going through, and yet how through the challenge, as a collective, as a group, they're contributing to changing the way the world perceives itself. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I love watching it. I love watching it happen when I talk about tracking the transits, because I usually do moon reports. So I do a report for the new moon and the full moon. And of course, each, lunation, I'm looking at the different, transits where the planets are during that time frame. And so seeing the progression of things is really, it's empowering to me, and it's exciting to watch. Even though we have challenges that are upcoming, we can definitely see the benefit that we're moving toward, or the changes that we're moving toward.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So as you're helping people, who do you help, and how do you help them? How does your coaching practice look, and like who would come and see you, and what would they see you about?
Yeah, that's a good question. Almost anything that is related to their emotional well-being. So we do sometimes get into some trauma work. I mentioned before we started the show, I'm a retired nurse, and so I am trauma trained. I'm not necessarily licensed in that currently. So I don't call myself a counselor. That's why I'm a coach, but I am certified. And so we do sometimes get into some of the trauma work. I am a Reiki master as well. So I use energy healing to help support the emotional processing of the, whatever is coming up for them. But also just people who are looking to understand themselves more or get in touch with their needs. That's a big passion of big part of what I do, especially when I do the couples sessions, that we're recognizing what is our own, what I call essential emotional needs. So many times we either just get distracted, or we don't realize that we're allowed to say, this is my need, or we don't know how to articulate it or ask for it. And so that's a big part of helping people with tools to work through some of that and help them feel empowered. Another big part of what I do is boundary work, helping people set and maintain their boundaries.
That is so important, because the more people set boundaries, the easier they are to get to be with them.
100%. People that don't know their boundaries, it's challenging because they don't know, or if they don't know their needs, it's hard to meet them for them. So that's one thing.
And you're always stepping on their toes, and you're like, well,
it is, yeah,
like
it's challenging. That's why I love evolutionary astrology and the paradigm of it, because we can see within the birth chart the way the soul has configured your human life. Whether you prescribe or subscribe to the idea of past lives, or whether you see it as a generational, or, it's in your DNA, your ancestral being. Either way, we come into this life with karmic memory. We come into this life with soul imprinting. And so that's a big part of sometimes what we're working through, that empowerment journey. And I lost where I was going with that, but let me see if it'll come back to me. What were you just asking me? Or what were you just talking about? Oh, about meeting needs and knowing needs.
Boundaries. We're talking about boundaries, and how boundaries they help you to be able to relate to other people. And when you don't have your own boundaries, you tend to not respect other people's boundaries, because you don't even recognize that they exist. And then people have trouble relating to you because they don't know what you want or expect. And I don't mean boundaries like, no, I'm not going to do this because my boundaries. There's a way to just live your life, and you recognize what your boundaries are, and it's up to you to enforce your boundaries in a way that's polite but firm. It's no is a perfectly fine answer. Most people don't recognize this. They say maybe, or let me think on it. But you could just say no, it doesn't meet my personal needs. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not even sorry. I'm just not doing that.
That's
Go
one of the
ask
things that
somebody
I say.
else.
Yeah. That's one of the things I say quite often is no is a complete sentence. There is no explanation required unless you want to offer one. No is a fine answer.
It is a fine answer. And I wish more people would use it. Just own it. Own what you want.
Mhm.
It makes it easier
Again,
for
we've been
other people.
conditioned. Yeah, we've been conditioned to not, we have to make people okay. We have to make people feel okay. And so if I
But it's
say
not our
no,
job.
no, it's not. And that's a lot of what we are overcoming in these, these times. I mean, that's what I see a lot in clients. And that's what, like I said, that my generation is working through.
Yeah. And it's really hard.
It is.
I'm the first to admit it's it's hard to stand there and say no to somebody that you don't because you don't want to do it. And then you end up saying yes, and then you're grudging about it. And it takes away from the relationship. Whereas if you just said no, go find somebody else who wants to do this, and then you guys will both be happy doing it. Rather than
Yeah, that's the big thing that comes out of people pleasing is the idea that I'm going to say yes because I don't want to hurt your feelings or I want to make it okay between us. And then what ends up happening is I'm saying no to myself. I'm stepping over my own boundary. And when I do that, then I'm going to become resentful. And, there's disappointment involved, there's resentment that builds. And that's a big part of why relationships dissolve, because they have this constant underlying undercurrent of this resentment that's there when we really can own our own needs, own our own emotional, sense of safety, then we don't rely on someone else to provide that. Now, of course, that's a part of relating relationships, but it's not the other person's responsibility to do that for us.
right. And that's a big thing. Taking responsibility for your own feelings and your own desires and your own boundaries and being able to express them in a way that empowers other people to be around you, but doesn't make you feel like you have to be less. Just step into it. It's okay. And, honestly, if there are people that have a problem with that, they're not your people. Let them go.
Yeah.
They're never going to be your people, no matter how much you try to make them like you. They just, they
Yeah.
just belong on a different part of the puzzle. And it's okay. It's not anything bad about them. You don't even have to think they're bad people. They're just not your people.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the challenge of letting go as well, is knowing when to release a certain relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a job, anything that we're really in relationship with, if it's not serving us, if it's not providing, a positive space for us, learning to say it's okay to let go of that. It's okay to walk away from that. And what does that look like for me? Now, there's still emotions, of course, that come along. Even if you say no, and it's the right thing for you, oftentimes then there's still guilt that comes. There's that feeling of, oh, I should have said yes, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have went along with it. And then we fight with ourselves with, the internal dialogue that we have with our inner critic is what I call it. And so there's still a part of processing that after, we hold the boundary. And that's a part of what I do as well.
Yeah. And that's really helpful for people who are struggling with setting boundaries and holding those boundaries, because in the beginning it's hard to hold your boundaries because of the very thing you're talking about, but a lot of that is just in your head. The other person probably isn't thinking anything. They're busy off trying to find somebody to do that thing that they wanted you to do that you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And they're out there looking for somebody because they don't want to do it themselves. They're like, do it yourself or just let it go. I don't care. Just don't rope me into it.
Yes, I know.
And sometimes
Yeah.
with just calling them on it is enough.
Sometimes. And
Yeah.
that's another part of the relational stuff that I talk about is the accountability, being accountable to yourself and being accountable to your partner or whoever you're in relationship with, and allowing them to be accountable as well. Holding people accountable and allowing them to feel their emotions the way they feel them. Not feeling responsible for other people's emotions is also a big part of how we handle this idea of codependency. I'm a recovering codependent, so I absolutely know what that's all about. And so that is a big part of my passion for helping people also overcome that. What I do want to clarify, I guess, with that, because codependency kind of gets this rap of how awful it is, and it can cause a lot of problems. But as humans, we are meant to be interdependent. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, the idea of humanity, the idea of community. We absolutely are meant to be interdependent on one another. There's just a difference between giving up your own sense of sovereignty for someone else, or putting yourself last for someone else to be first. It's more about, the balance between that.
It's two whole people coming together rather than two halves making one. That doesn't work.
The idea of my better half or my other half. And I mean, yes, it's another half of a relationship, but you don't require someone else to make you whole.
Right. You are yourself. You're both unique. You're not the same person, and you shouldn't be. Right. And you can appreciate what's great about the other person, and you can recognize the things that drive you crazy about each other, and you can recognize the things about each other that can destroy the relationship if you detach a little bit. You don't push each other's buttons. After being married for 28 years, that was the one thing I have told all my kids and all their relationships, and all my kids have really great relationships with their spouses, that you don't push the other person's buttons. It's
we're going to do it inadvertently, because that's part of how it is, but to do it on purpose, and it's not helpful. It's not helpful. It doesn't build the trust. It doesn't build the vulnerability that's required.
It tears it down. So how can people get in touch with you, Kara?
That's a good question too. The best way is through my website, astrokara.com. You can email me. There's a link on my website at the bottom, or it's just Kara, Kara, at astrokara.com. That's probably the easiest way and best way, because I check those often. I also offer free consultations. And so on the first main landing page of my website, you can find a link to free consultation. It's about 15-20 minutes via Zoom, just to see what your concerns are, what I might be able to help you with. And I do also like to say that if I feel that I'm not the practitioner for you, I do also have a several referral partners who I have available, that if I can't meet your need, then I can at least try to get you to someone who can.
That's awesome. So what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with? What do you hope they'll take away from our conversation?
I think the empowerment is the biggest thing, that taking ownership of your own empowerment is important, and it's possible. It's your responsibility, and sometimes we need help, and that's when you can reach out. The other part that I would just love to leave you with is on my website, if you do astrokara.com/catalyst, spelled like that, that is my coaching program. And there's a page about that if you're interested in learning more about it. Let me help empower you.
Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a great conversation.
I love it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at The You World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.